I have a lot of power in my hands because I organize like the special ministry lead. So I actually put myself as second because I was hoping that Sean's would pack a punch at the end, which it does. So I'm really excited. Just anyway. Hello everyone. My name is Chiwon from Ecuador House Church, and I actually feel like I have given so many testimonies over the last year that you guys might be sick and tired of me, and I actually was really struggling with what to share for today. The prompt given was joy of salvation, not just salvation meaning one point in time, but the joy that we have as our journey with God matures and develops over the years. And since I shared a few months ago already where I was at where I was at spiritually and mentally, I thought I would give everyone a short form of my own salvation testimony, but also an update, mainly an update on my personal journey. As a quick background for those that do not know me, I have a pretty basic vanilla salvation testimony. I initially received Jesus into my life in the summer of my seventh grade year following a youth Christian summer camp. I had made that decision based on my experience at said camp, and also because I had seen how God had slowly changed my harsh and stubborn dad over the years of attending church. So through actually my dad accepting Christ and seeing him change through the power of Christ actually was also a big influence on my own decision. But I had always thought that my testimony was so vanilla, it was so boring. I was like, like seventh grade, like no one's gonna, if anyone asked and I said I received Jesus in seventh grade, everyone's like, oh, okay. You can kind of get the story, youth summer camp. So at the time, I had really wanted I was joking around with my house church members at the time that I wanted to, go out and make a new testimony for myself, like one that was not so vanilla or basic, but had lots of twists and turns and troubles and darkness. So that is what I wanted. And I didn't get exactly what I wanted, but I did have a time during grad school where I actually had another time point where I had left the church going out of state for grad school, and then subsequently for about a year and a half did not attend church. It's not that I initially didn't want to. I tried maybe a few churches, but just didn't feel like I had the community. And then once that started happening, I just stopped going to church altogether. And during that year and a half, one thing led to another, and I definitely did not lead a very Christianly life, focusing on money, status, other types of immoralities. So when I came back from grad school, it actually took a very long time to essentially restart my relationship with God. So if I think of like the 2 points in my life where I had another like coming to Jesus moment. I think those two would be it. And perhaps it was because I was initially so very young when I first decided to learn about this God in my life. Or perhaps it was that I hadn't fully grasped the gravity of my decision at the time. But I really struggled with the fact that one has to actually keep up a relationship with God. It wasn't just a checkbox tick off. Tick, I'm a Christian, I'm not going to hell, perfect. It wasn't like that. And I think many of you guys might relate to this type of mentality because we know that Christian life, the life of following Jesus, is a journey and not a singular decision. But we start to view it like anything else that we have to do as a big, long checklist of to-dos and telling ourselves that a lot of those things we just have to do regardless of whether we enjoy it or not. It is required of us. Going to church every Sunday, going to Bible study, praying before meals, praying for your church, going to house church, reading the Bible. The list goes on and on. And I told myself at the time that these things won't be at all fun, but it needs to be done to become disciplined and for these things to be routine. And in my heart of hearts, I really wanted these things to eventually become easier and easier so that I can just turn off my brain and do it. But one personality trait of mine is that I really hate routines. It has gotten a lot better as I've aged, but Actually never had a bedtime when growing up, and so I don't sleep at the same time. I don't wake up the same time. I don't like wearing the same things all the time. I like to mix up what I'm doing in terms of the food I eat and the coffee shops I go, things I drink. Not necessarily wildly spontaneous, but I like to make plans last minute without any planning. I used to actually meal prep in grad school out of necessity, and I was absolutely miserable because I had to eat the same thing every day. And even in my current work, where I travel a lot, I do enjoy the different routines. And I think that is why my body isn't completely messed up from all the travel. But the thing about routine is that when it is not rooted in intent, it starts to dissolve away no matter how much you try. I was already bad at keeping routines, but keeping up with a long list of must-dos for church life became, in all honesty, very boring and very overwhelming. At many times while I was serving earlier on in ANF's maybe first couple of years, maybe the first 2 years of ANF, I would ask myself, what was the point? Much like what PD talked about yesterday, I grew extremely complacent. And in my head, I thought, I have so many Christian friends in the world, and there's so many Christians in the world. But ANF seems to be asking a lot more of me than any of the other churches I've been to, and more of me than any other of my other Christian friends. So if we all go to the same heaven, why are we going through these motions, especially without any joy? This goes beyond serving in ministries, but rather in my entire relationship with God. So despite the routine, there were always a few moments when I did feel joy in my salvation and joy in other people's salvation, joy in becoming a part of God's family. One of these moments, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate, are, baptisms whenever some of our members get baptized. I always feel an overwhelming sense of joy and thanksgiving when someone proclaims Jesus as their Lord and Savior out loud in front of a congregation. Other moments I've felt joy is often associated with the high points in my spiritual life when I'm at a retreat, a revival like this, or some big church conference. But what about the times in between? I used to think, and I used to lie to myself, that it was a feeling of being content, that I was okay in between the times. But now I see that it was actually feelings of complacency. People say that time apart makes the heart grow fonder. So for the past 3 months, we're switching gears to kind of really recently. For the past 3 months, I have been traveling nonstop. Just this past month, have I've had to miss house church. I've had to skip church, skip out on my ministries. And just this past month, I had to miss a whopping 3 Sundays out of the four. That is 3 Sundays without church worship. And like many of you can guess, my spiritual life really took a very, very big hit. And at one point, I had come to PD to seek some guidance because he is my shepherd. And I had come to him because I was planning to quit my job because of the strain mentally, physically, and I told him most importantly, spiritually. And you might think I'm extremely ungrateful given the current climate of the job market today. And yes, I had a stressful job, but a well-paying one that any young single person that had an interest in traveling on the weekends might enjoy. But I had felt that because the job was taking me away from church, it had to go. So I had actually come to PD with my mind already made up. I had already written my resignation letter so that he could just say, yes, you can quit. So I came to him and I really just wanted him to say, like, to approve of my decision. And I had given him a list of all my reasons. PD, I can't serve my house church well. I can't come to church. My spiritual life is really struggling. And I was really surprised when PD told me that I couldn't quit my job until I had another job lined up. And in my head, I knew that logically it made sense, like financially, but I was actually secretly kind of disappointed because I had thought, like why wasn't my pastor telling me to quit something that I thought was actively taking me away from Jesus? I had thought, like, shouldn't my pastor be more worried about my spiritual health than, my financial one? And I had brought it up a few more times, hoping that he would change his mind, but he did not. And when I had mentioned multiple times that, highlighting my spiritual decline due to not being able to attend church regularly, he had said that if my spiritual life was my excuse, I needed to find a way to grow spiritually anyway, outside of just attending church and house church. Um, my simple brain initially went through maybe a week of like kind of small depression because I couldn't quit my job like I wanted. But as the series of sermons went by, at least the ones that I could attend and listen to, and even the message we just heard yesterday about waking up, I kept thinking about what PD had told me about growing spiritually outside of church and house church. Maybe he didn't mean it in the way that I interpreted it, but I had realized that I had grown so complacent and that it wasn't necessarily my spiritual life that was in need of rescue from my job, but my spiritual life in need of rescue from myself. I was relying only on these Sunday worships as a form of spiritual pick-me-up. I was relying on house church as a form of spiritual pick-me-up. I was relying on Bible study as a form of spiritual pick-me-up. But in the times in between, I was not developing my relationship with God because I simply did not want to. I was content in not developing my relationship with God more than I would need to get through all of the routines that I had to do. And I experienced joy in my salvation through ministries. I have a lot of joy doing my ministries. I have a lot of joy through house church, but only perhaps in these highest points of my life. Never in the busiest times, never in the quiet moments when I am by myself with God in front of me. I was actually embarrassed of how flimsy my spiritual life had become. I had mentioned earlier in my testimony that routine without intent is meaningless. I know this, you know this, everyone knows this. And while I have learned to find joy in serving various ministries over the years, and I have learned to find joy through my house church and fellowship, I think I have yet to find consistent joy in the personal moments that I have with God. Peace, yes, sure, but everlasting joy, I don't know. It sometimes feels a little forced and unnatural when I focus on the tasks and lose sight of God. So I have about a month and a half of no travel coming up for work. So I would like to ask all of you guys to keep an eye on me and pray for me that I will be able to wake up from the spiritual slumber I am in and not fall into a meaningless routine just to keep my head above water. I hope that I can relearn, re-engage, and approach my relationship with God with the excitement of a newly believing Christian with the full intention to grow my relationship with Him outside of house church, and other structured settings so that I can confidently say I have joy in my relationship in the moments of quiet, in the moments of hardships, in the moments when I am alone. Thank you.